Welcome to Waco Center for Functional Medicine. We're so glad you're here. We're going to actually start with a video that explains what exactly functional medicine is, what we do, and how your body truly works. So let's jump in. So first we're going to take a look at leaky gut. I'm sure you may have heard this term, but some people may be unfamiliar with it. So what exactly is leaky gut? I know that term has been thrown around on the internet a lot, and sometimes it can lead to some confusion and, making people think that maybe this isn't a true thing. However, studies have shown that this actually is a real phenomenon. And so if you look at the left side of this gut, this is a cross-sectional view of the intestinal lining. So your intestines are a single-celled lining, and you want your intestines to look like over on the left, where they're nice and pink and happy and healthy, and you're absorbing all the nutrients, and you're not having any inflammation in your gut whatsoever. Now, when we look at the right side, we see that the gut lining is super inflamed, it's leaky, it's red, it's irritated, and people who have a leaky gut that looks like that on the right side of the picture, they're struggling with symptoms of bloating, constipation, or maybe it's diarrhea. They tend to have rashes, eczema, acne, all because they're not absorbing nutrients well, and also their gut is inflamed, which means the rest of their body is going to be inflamed. So that makes us ask the question, what causes leaky gut? And there's 4 things that cause leaky gut. Number 1 is stress. This is the most challenging thing to address because we are chronically stressed out, especially in this day and age, and whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual, social stress, this stress affects our gut lining. And so we must identify those stressors and find ways that we can actually manage those stress and manage our reactions to that stress. The second one is chronic infections. So we live in a day and age when we are overprescribed antibiotics. And so what happens whenever we get too many antibiotics? Well, our gut is made up of a microbiome. And the microbiome consists of good bacteria that make up our immune system. 80% of our immune system is in our gut, and also 80% of the serotonin that our body has is made by good gut bacteria. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter that's responsible for feelings of happiness, euphoria, pleasure, and people who are depressed tend to have low amounts of serotonin. So if we're taking lots of antibiotics, naturally it's going to lower the amounts of good bacteria, and that allows bad bacteria or yeast and things like that to overgrow and crowd out the good bacteria, which causes inflammation. Not only can you have high amounts of bad bacteria, you can also have the presence of yeast, parasites, H. pylori, and worms, which most people are very grossed out about, present in your gut, and those also cause inflammation of the gut lining and can cause a myriad of symptoms, including insomnia, poor digestion, reflux, bloating, irritable bowel syndrome, skin rashes, and so many more symptoms. So it's important that we identify any types of infection in the gut and we eliminate them. The third thing is diet. Many people have food sensitivities that they absolutely have no idea that they had in the first place. The 3 most inflammatory foods are gluten, dairy, and sugar. And so we must remove inflammatory foods in order for that gut level. So we have to assess if there's any other food triggers that are causing inflammation in the body. The 4th thing is toxins. Unfortunately, we live in a highly, highly toxic world, and those toxins aren't going anywhere. And so over time, our body is exposed to more and more toxins, which affect that gut lining because we were never intended to expose to that toxins in the first place. This brings us to our next topic, the process of detoxification and elimination. So our bodies were never meant to handle this amount of toxins in the first place. If you think back to hunting and gathering days, our bodies did not encounter as many toxins as we do on a daily basis. So we encounter toxins through the air that we breathe, what we put on our skin, including lotions, detergents, soaps, perfumes, even the water that we shower with, what we drink, what we eat, the medications that we take, and all of that has to be processed through the liver. Now, let's compare our liver to a trash can. So let's say that your trash can, your liver, is 7 gallons. And let's say that we're encountering 14 gallons worth of toxins on a daily basis. Now, most people can do that simple math. It is not going to take long before that 7-gallon trash can, your liver, starts overflowing with 14 gallons worth of trash. So there's several variables that affect our ability to detoxify. Number one is toxin exposure. So people who have mercury amalgams, who have had lead exposure, or maybe grew up in the oil fields, exposed to lots of different chemicals and things like that, or maybe they grew up in a moldy house, they are going to have higher amounts of toxin exposure than everybody else. Now, the second thing that affects the ability to detoxify is genetics. Some people struggle genetically with detoxifying, and so over time our body begins to keep score. If you notice, eventually those toxins that the liver cannot handle, the excess toxins have to be stored somewhere. And so our fat-soluble toxins like heavy metals, mercury, hormones, pesticides, herbicides, things like that, those tend to get stored in the fat cells, bone marrow, liver, brain, and central. And a common question that we get is, where are we exposed to these toxins in the first place? And I mean, obviously heavy metals, that is in our water. And Waco water in particular is very high in arsenic. Also, you can be exposed to mercury through mercury amalgams, hormones. All of our beauty products tend to have things called xenoestrogens, which mimic estrogen and actually can bind to estrogen receptors and cause the similar effects of estrogen. I believe this is why we are seeing puberty happen at much earlier ages than we used to. Also, estrogen in and of itself can be a toxin, and I can explain more individually on that one-on-one. Now, you'll see that water-soluble toxins tend to get stored in joints, blood, tissues, and muscles, and these are typically the vapors like mycotoxins from mold exposure, vapors from gasoline fumes, things that we're breathing in, from just smog and things like that. Now, over time, we begin to develop side effects and signs of toxicity, and that could be anything from hormone imbalance to problems losing weight, irritable bowel syndrome, constipation, acne, eczema, autoimmune issues, nervous system function, dementia, ADHD. There are so many things that this can manifest as, and what people don't realize is that our body keeps score. So the toxins that you're exposed to as a kid can be stored in your body, which can affect your health today. So the next question is, what do we do? The first thing is just to make sure that you're not being exposed to toxins anymore, or that you mitigate the high amounts of toxin exposure. So check for mold, check for water damage in your home, check for water damage in your workplace. Air quality, make sure that you're changing your air filter out frequently. If you're living in a city with lots of smog, make sure that you're changing out your car filters. Also, check out your water quality. Reverse osmosis water filters are amazing because they can filter out majority of dangerous chemicals and heavy metals, but you want to make sure that you have a mineral filter that's adding those good minerals back in. So also, we need to support the liver. We need to support the liver so that way we can make sure that we are moving those metals. So this brings us to our next question. What exactly does all of this have to do with my symptoms and inflammation? And you see this little drawing here. This is actually a picture of the vagus nerve, which is the 10th cranial nerve and the longest nerve in the body. You can notice that it innervates the brain, the thyroid, the lungs, the heart, the liver, the pancreas, the spleen, the small and large intestine, the gonads. And the thing about this nerve is that it is a bidirectional nerve, which means that the gut sends signals to the brain and the brain sends signals to the gut. Now, they have done tracing studies and they have found that the gut sends a significantly larger number of signals to the brain and the rest of the body than the brain does to the gut. And so we know that if there's inflammation happening in the gut, that the immune system is sending signals to the rest of the body by way of this nerve here to tell the rest of the body that, hey, we need to be inflamed, we need to be on guard because we have a foreign invader. A lot of times that's triggered from food allergies, infections, inflammation, and so our job is to figure out what is causing that inflammation. And from there, that is where we can find true healing. Thank you so much for listening. We are so excited to be a part of this health journey and that you've decided to take control of your wellness.